polished mahogany of the courtroom felt more like a coffin than a place of justice. A ruthless corporate lawyer smirked the judge raised his gavel to destroy a family, and a desperate mother wept, bracing for total ruin. They didn't even look at her 17-year-old son sitting in the gallery. They saw an urban kid in a faded hoodie. They didn't know they were looking at a legal prodigy about to rip their airtight case to shreds. Cook County, Circuit Court, 412 smelled of stale floor wax, cheap coffee, and desperation. It was a room where lives were quietly dismantled on a daily basis, processed through a bureaucratic meat grinder that favored the wealthy and crushed the uninformed. At the defendant's table sat Sarah Jenkins. She was 42, but looked 10 years older, her eyes hollowed out from back-to-back double shifts at Memorial Hospital. She wore her only good dress, a navy blue polyester number that she had meticulously ironed the night before, trying to project a dignity she felt slipping through her fingers. Her hands calloused and raw from years of scrubbing up the nursing rounds trembled as they rested on the scarred oak table. Beside her sat Leonard Cobb, a public defender who looked like he had given up on his career a decade ago. Cobb was sweating through his inexpensive grey suit, shuffling a stack of disorganized manila folders and occasionally sighing heavily. He hadn't even looked Sarah in the eye since they sat down. To him, she was just docket number 114-B, another inevitable loss. Another poor woman about to be steamrolled by the system. Across the aisle, occupying the plaintiff's table like a conquering king, was Preston Harrington III. Harrington was a senior partner at a boutique corporate law firm that specialized in asset extraction and predatory debt enforcement. His suit cost more than Sarah made in 3 months. His hair was impeccably styled, his posture relaxed, and his smile carried the sharp, predatory edge of a man who knew he held all the cards. He represented Apex Holdings, a faceless real estate conglomerate that purchased the debt of Sarah's late husband. The presiding authority over this tragic pair was Judge Arthur Pendleton. Pendleton was a man in his late 60s, notorious in the circuit for his impatience, his strict adherence to procedure over fairness, and his distinct lack of sympathy for pro-bono defendants. He peered down from his elevated bench over the rims of his half-moon legal glasses. His face set, permanent scowl of irritation. The loud ticking of the wall clock echoed through the high-ceilinged window, counting down the final minutes of Sarah Jenkins's financial life. Mr. Cobb, Judge Pendleton's voice boomed sharp and grating. Are we nearly finished here? I have 4 more hearings before lunch, and this case seems overwhelmingly straightforward. Your client signed the addendum. The balloon payment of $45,000 came due. She defaulted. Apex Holdings has filed for immediate repossession of the property to cover the debt plus legal fees. What exactly is your defense counsel? Cobb stood up, wiping his forehead with a crumpled handkerchief. He looked at his notes, swallowed hard, and offered a defense so weak it was practically an insult. Your Honor, my client, Mrs. Jenkins. She was unaware of the addendum. Her late husband signed the original mortgage agreement. The addendum in question was buried in a 60-page refinancing document. She is a widow, Your Honor, a nurse. She simply doesn't have the funds to satisfy this immediate demand. We are asking the court for leniency and a restructuring of the debt. Preston Harrington chuckled softly, a sound that cut through the silent room like a razor. He stood up slowly, buttoning his tailored jacket. Leniency, Your Honor. Harrington asked, his voice dripping with faux sympathy. While my heart certainly bleeds for Mrs. Jenkins's personal tragedies, this is a court of law, not a charity foundation. The contract is binding. The signature of her late husband is verified. As the inheritor of the estate, she assumes the debt. Ignorance of the clauses within a legally binding document does not invalidate the document itself. Apex Holdings has been more than patient. We demand immediate summary judgment. The house is collateral. The law is absolute. Sarah let out a small, strangled sob, covering her mouth with both hands. The house wasn't just a piece of property. It was the only thing she had left of her husband David, who had died of a sudden aneurysm 3 years prior. It was the home where she had raised her son. Losing it meant immediate homelessness. They had no savings. The hospital barely paid her enough to cover groceries and utilities. If the judge ruled in favor of Apex Holdings, the sheriff's department would have them on the street by Monday morning. Judge Pendleton sighed, adjusting his glasses. He looked down at Cobb. Mr. Harrington is correct. The court cannot rewrite a contract simply because it poses a financial hardship to the defendant. Does the defense have any actual legal standing to challenge the validity of the contract? Any precedent? Any procedural anomalies? Cobb looked down at his messy files. He flipped a page, then another. A silence in the room stretched out in agonized intensity. Finally, Cobb shook his head, looking utterly defeated. No, Your Honor. We have no further arguments. Sarah felt the room spin. The edges of her vision darkened. She looked at Cobb in sheer disbelief. That was it. That was the extent of her defense. 3 minutes of stammering, and now her life was over. Very well, Judge Pendleton said, picking up his wooden gavel. Having heard the arguments and seeing no legal reason to invalidate the claims of the plaintiff, I am prepared to rule in favor of... Wait. The voice didn't come from the defense table. It didn't come from the plaintiff's table. It came from the gallery directly behind the wooden railing that separated the spectators from the legal arena. It was a young voice, steady, calm, but carrying a resonance that demanded immediate attention. Judge Pendleton froze his gavel, hovering an inch above the sounding block. He snapped his head up his eyes, narrowing in fury at the interruption. Preston Harrington turned around, raising an aristocratic eyebrow in amusement. Sarah gasped, twisting in her chair. Sitting in the front row of the gallery was Malik Jenkins. Malik Jenkins was 17 years old. He was a high school senior, slightly lanky, dressed in a faded black hoodie, dark jeans, and scuffed sneakers. To the bailiff standing by the door, to the judge on the bench, and to the expensive lawyer across the room, Malik looked exactly like what their biases told them. He was a statistic. Just another inner-city kid, sitting in the back of a courtroom, completely out of his depth. They couldn't have been more wrong. Malik had not spent the last 3 years grieving the loss of his father by acting out or shutting down. While Sarah worked double shifts, Malik took over the house. He cooked, he cleaned, and he studied. But Malik's brain didn't work like a normal teenager's. From a very young age, his teachers had realized he possessed an eidetic memory, a photographic recall so precise, it was almost frightening. But it wasn't just memory, it was the way he synthesized information. He saw patterns where others saw chaos. He understood systems, logic, and structure. When the letters from Apex Holdings started arriving 6 months ago, demanding exorbitant payments and threatening foreclosure, Sarah had tried to hide them from him to protect him. But Malik had found them in the bottom of her nursing tote. He didn't panic. He went to work. Every day after school, while other kids played sports or hung out at the mall, Malik took the city bus down to the Central Public Library. He bypassed the young adult section and went straight to the legal archives. Since they couldn't afford a lawyer, Malik had decided he would figure it out himself. For 6 months, he read. He devoured introductory law textbooks, moved on to the Uniform Commercial Code, studied Illinois state property laws, and pored over decades of appellate court decisions. He learned the language of the enemy. He learned about torts, breach of contract statute, of fraud, and civil procedure. He would sit under the flickering fluorescent lights until the librarian kicked him out at 9 p.m. His notebooks filled with dense, meticulously cross-referenced citations. Malik had begged his mother to let him help her build the case, but Sarah had insisted on trusting the system. She believed the court-appointed lawyer would know what to do. She wanted Malik to focus on his SATs, not her financial nightmares. So Malik had sat in the gallery today, silently praying that Leonard Cobb actually knew what he was doing. For the last 20 minutes, Malik had watched in mounting horror as Cobb spectacularly failed to deploy even basic legal defense strategies. Cobb hadn't checked the notarization stamps. He hadn't questioned the chain of title on the debt transfer. He was simply rolling over. As Malik sat there watching the judge raise the gavel, his mind was racing at 1,000,000 miles an hour. He saw the structure of Preston Harrington's argument. It was a beautiful, ruthless piece of legal engineering, but like any machine, it had a flaw. Malik had found that flaw 3 nights ago at 2 a.m., reading a dusty volume of property law on his cracked laptop. He knew that if that gavel fell, it was over. Summary judgments were notoriously difficult to appeal, especially without money. If he let the system run its course, his mother would lose everything. So he didn't let the system run its course. "Wait," Malik said again, louder this time. He stood up from the wooden bench. Judge Pendleton's face turned a deep, mottled red. In his courtroom, he was a god, and interruptions from the gallery were an unforgivable blasphemy. "Who is speaking?" Pendleton thundered. "Bailiff, remove that young man from my courtroom immediately. This is not a town hall meeting." Bailiff Thomas, a burly man with a thick mustache, started walking down the aisle toward Malik, resting his hand on his utility belt. "Come on, kid. Let's go. Outside." Sarah stood up, panicked. "No, please. That's my son. Please, Your Honor. He's just a boy. He doesn't know any better. He is disrupting a legal proceeding." "Mrs. Jenkins," Pendleton snapped. "I can hold him in contempt of court and put him in a holding cell for 48 hours if I choose to. Bailiff, remove him now." Malik didn't step back. He didn't run. He didn't show an ounce of fear. He looked right past the approaching bailiff locked eyes of the judge and spoke in a voice so calm and authoritative it stopped the bailiff dead in his tracks. "Your Honor, under the Illinois Code of Civil Procedure, Section 2-408, I have the right to intervene in this action. As a resident of the property in question and a direct dependent of the defendant, the outcome of this summary judgment, material and irreparable, affects my living status. Furthermore, the defense counsel has failed to introduce a critical piece of exculpatory evidence regarding the plaintiff's standing to sue." The entire courtroom went dead silent. The stenographer's fingers stopped typing. Cobb's jaw practically hit the table. Preston Harrington stopped his smug chuckling, his eyes narrowing as he re-evaluated the teenager in the hoodie. Judge Pendleton stared at the boy, completely taken aback. Teenagers from this neighborhood were supposed to mumble "look down" and show intimidation in the face of authority. They were not supposed to perfectly recite civil procedure codes from memory. "Are you attempting to represent your mother, young man?" Judge Pendleton asked, his tone shifting from pure rage to a dangerous, mocking incredulity. "You are a minor. You haven't passed the bar. You aren't even old enough to buy a lottery ticket, let alone practice law in my courtroom." "I am not attempting to act as primary counsel, Your Honor," Malik replied smoothly, stepping out from the pew and walking right up to the wooden railing that divided the gallery from the court floor. "I am invoking my right as an interested party to provide amicus curiae, a friend of the court brief verbally, as the defense counsel, Mr. Cobb, seems to have overlooked a fundamental jurisdictional defect in Mr. Harrington's file." Leonard Cobb turned beet red. "Now see here, kid. Quiet, Mr. Cobb," Judge Pendleton said, holding up a hand. The judge leaned forward, crossing his arms. He was a cruel man who enjoyed a spectacle, and he was absolutely certain this arrogant kid was about to make a fool of himself. It would be highly entertaining to watch Preston Harrington tear the boy to pieces. "Well now, a legal scholar in a hoodie, Mr. Harrington, do you have any objection to allowing the defendant's son to approach the bench and offer his amateur legal theory before I rule?" Preston Harrington smiled a slick, oily grin. He looked at Malik like a lion looks at a wounded gazelle. "No objection at all, Your Honor. I think it would be highly educational for the young man to learn a practical lesson about how the real world operates. Please let the boy speak. I could use the entertainment." "Very well," Pendleton said, waving his hand. "Come forward, young man. Let's hear your brilliant legal insight. But be warned, if you waste the court's time, I will not hesitate to hold you in contempt." Malik pushed open the swinging wooden gate and crossed the threshold into the legal arena. He walked past Preston Harrington, ignoring the lawyer's mocking smirk, and approached the defense table. He placed a gentle hand on his mother's shoulder. Sarah was shaking violently, tears streaming down her face. "Malik, what are you doing?" she whispered frantically. "Please, just sit down. They're going to put you in jail." Trust me, Mom. Malik whispered back, his voice incredibly soft, but ironclad with confidence. I've got this, I promise. He turned to Leonard Cobb, who was glaring at him angrily. Give me the addendum, Malik said, holding out his hand. Listen to me, you little punk, Cobb hissed under his breath. You are embarrassing me, and you are making things worse for your mother. Sit down before... Give me the addendum, Mr. Cobb. Malik interrupted, his voice dropping an octave, carrying a chilling authority. Or I will inform the judge that you failed to request the original wet ink signature during discovery, which is grounds for an immediate malpractice complaint to the state bar. Cobb blinked, stunned. His hands fumbled as he pulled a stapled packet of paper from his chaotic file and handed it to the boy. Malik took the document and walked to the center of the floor, standing exactly halfway between the judge's bench and the opposing counsel's table. He didn't look like a scared teenager anymore. He stood with his back straight, his shoulders squared. He held the document in one hand. Whenever you are ready, Mr. Jenkins, Judge Pendleton drawled sarcastically. The court waits with bated breath. Thank you, Your Honor. Malik began, his voice ringing clear across the silent room. Mr. Harrington has built his entire motion for summary judgment on the premise that my late father signed this addendum, which introduced a $45,000 balloon payment clause into our original mortgage agreement. Because my father passed away, Mr. Harrington claims the debt transferred to my mother, and due to her inability to pay Apex Holdings, has the right to foreclose. A very good summary of the facts, kid. Harrington interrupted condescendingly. See, Your Honor. Even a high schooler can understand it. The contract is binding. It would be binding, Malik countered, smoothly pivoting on his heel to face Harrington directly. If it were actually a legal contract, but it isn't. It's a piece of trash. The courtroom gasped. Judge Pendleton slammed his gavel down at once. Watch your tone, young man. You are in a court of law, not a playground. I apologize for the colloquialism, Your Honor, Malik said without missing a beat. Allow me to rephrase in legal terms. The document Mr. Harrington is presenting to this court is entirely void under the Illinois statute of frauds, and his motion for summary judgment is based on a fraudulent premise. Harrington scoffed loudly, throwing his hands up. Fraudulent, Your Honor. This is absurd. The signature has been authenticated. The signature of my father is authentic, Malik agreed. But the dates are not, and the notary stamp is not. Malik walked toward the bench holding up the document. If the court will direct its attention to page 14, section 3, paragraph B, the clause detailing the balloon payment. Below that is the signature line. My father's signature is dated October 12th, 2021. Next to it is the notary public's stamp verifying the signature. The notary's commission expiration date is listed as May 4th, 2022. So what? Harrington snapped, losing a fraction of his smugness. The notary was commissioned at the time of the signing. That makes it perfectly legal. Actually, it doesn't, Malik said, a cold, razor-sharp smile finally touching his lips. It was the smile of a chess grandmaster who had just cornered the king. Because I didn't just read the contract, Mr. Harrington. I read the metadata of the property records filed with the county clerk. Malik reached into his hoodie pocket and pulled out a single folded piece of paper. He unfolded it and handed it to the bailiff, gesturing for him to pass it to the judge. What I just handed the court, Malik explained, pacing slowly in front of the plaintiff's table, is a certified record from the Illinois Secretary of State's notary public database. It shows that the notary who stamped this document, a Mr. Gerald Vance, a Mr. Gerald Hopkins, had his notary license suspended on September 1st, 2021, due to ethical violations regarding backdated real estate documents. The air in the room seemed to freeze. Harrington's face went completely pale. Let me be absolutely clear. Malik continued, his voice rising, filling every corner of the room with undeniable authority. My father signed this document on October 12th. The notary Gerald Hopkins stamped it on October 12th. But Hopkins had his license stripped 6 weeks prior. Under Illinois state law, specifically, the state of Brentwood versus Carter, Any real estate contract altering the primary terms of a mortgage that is verified by an unlicensed or suspended notary is not just voidable, it is void ab initio. From the beginning, it is legally non-existent. Malik stopped pacing and stared directly into Preston Harrington's shocked eyes. My father never agreed to a legal balloon payment because the document executing it is mathematically and legally impossible to uphold. Apex Holdings bought a fraudulent debt, and you, Mr. Harrington, just attempted to enforce a voided contract in a court of law to steal my mother's house. Judge Pendleton was staring at the paper the bailiff had handed him. His eyes darted rapidly across the text. He looked at the date of the notary's suspension. He looked at the date on the contract. Mr. Harrington. Judge Pendleton's voice was suddenly very quiet, stripped of all its previous sarcasm. It was the voice of a judge realizing his court had almost been used to commit a felony. Are you aware of this discrepancy? Harrington stood up, his slick composure shattering. He fumbled with his briefcase. Your Honor, Our firm processes thousands of these documents. We rely on third-party verification. If there is an issue with the notary, we were unaware. Ignorance of the law is no excuse, Mr. Harrington. Malik fired back, weaponizing the exact phrase the lawyer had used 10 minutes earlier. Rule 11 of the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure, which is mirrored in Illinois courts, mandates that an attorney must conduct a reasonable inquiry into the factual basis of a document before presenting it to the court. You didn't do your due diligence. You just saw a poor widow and thought you could push her over. Sarah Jenkins was staring at her son as if she had never seen him before. Leonard Cobb was furiously taking notes, realizing this teenager was doing his job better than he had in 20 years. Your Honor, Malik said, turning back to the judge, his posture unwavering. Based on the undeniable fact that the contract addendum is legally void, I ask that the plaintiff's motion for summary judgment be immediately dismissed with prejudice. Furthermore, I request that the court recognize the original mortgage terms, which my mother is entirely up to date on, as the only valid standing agreement. Judge Pendleton slowly lowered the document. He looked at Preston Harrington, who was currently sweating profusely, looking like a man who had just stepped on a landmine. Then the judge looked at Malik. The irritation and mockery were completely gone from the old man's face, replaced by a profound, grudging respect. Mr. Harrington, Pendleton said, his voice dripping with ice. Do you have any counter-argument to the very specific and heavily documented claim this young man just made? Harrington swallowed hard, his expensive suit suddenly looking very heavy. He looked at the judge, then at the teenager who had just humiliated him. No, Your Honor. The plaintiff requests a recess to review the new evidence. Request denied, Pendleton barked, slamming his gavel down. The sound echoed like a gunshot. This court does not need a recess to recognize a fraudulent document. Case dismissed with prejudice. Apex Holdings is barred from pursuing this specific debt further. And Mr. Harrington, you can expect a formal inquiry from this bench regarding your firm's document verification practices. Do I make myself clear? Crystal, Your Honor, Harrington muttered, hastily packing his briefcase. Sarah burst into tears again, but this time they were tears of overwhelming relief and joy. She stood up and wrapped her arms around Malik, burying her face in his shoulder. Malik hugged her back tightly, closing his eyes as the immense pressure of the last 6 months finally lifted off his shoulders. But as Malik opened his eyes and looked across the courtroom, he noticed Preston Harrington wasn't leaving. The lawyer had stopped at the swinging gate. He was staring at Malik, his eyes narrowed, calculating something. And up on the bench, Judge Pendleton was also watching the boy. Malik had just saved his home. He had beaten a corporate titan using nothing but a library card and an eidetic memory. But as he looked at the hardened expressions of the men in power around him, Malik realized something terrifying. This wasn't over. He hadn't just won a case. He had exposed a massive multi-million-dollar vulnerability in Apex Holdings' entire business model. If Gerald Hopkins had stamped this fraudulent contract, how many hundreds of other families had Apex Holdings evicted using using the exact same illegal loophole Malik had just kicked the hornet's nest. And the hornets were about to strike back. The euphoria of the courtroom victory lasted exactly 4 hours. Back in their small 2-bedroom bungalow on the south side, Sarah Jenkins was in the kitchen, humming a gospel hymn for the first time in 3 years. She was frying chicken and boiling collard greens, using the last of her grocery budget to celebrate the miracle that had just occurred. She kept glancing into the living room, looking at her son as if he were a stranger who had suddenly sprouted wings. But Malik wasn't celebrating. He sat cross-legged on the warm living room rug, his cracked laptop burning hot against his thighs. The glow of the screen illuminated the intense, unblinking focus in his eyes. While his mother saw a closed chapter, Malik saw the edge of a massive, terrifying puzzle. His eidetic memory was a blessing, but it was also a curse. His brain refused to let go of incomplete data. Why would a massive conglomerate like Apex Holdings rely on a suspended notary? It wasn't a clerical error. Harrington's firm processed thousands of foreclosures. They had compliance departments. You don't make a mistake like that by accident. You do it on purpose because the notary is cheap, complicit enough to agree. Malik's fingers flew across the keyboard, bypassing the public-facing county clerk sites and digging deep into the Illinois Digital Property Archive. He ran a Boolean search, cross-referencing the name Gerald Hopkins with Apex Holdings and addendum. The loading icon spun for 5 agonizing seconds. Then the results populated. Malik's breath hitched in his throat. 412. There were 412 properties across Cook County, predominantly in lower-income minority neighborhoods, where Apex Holdings had executed balloon payment addendums verified by Gerald Hopkins after his license had been suspended. 412 families who had been illegally evicted. 412 homes stolen through a systematic, institutionalized fraud pipeline. "Dinner's almost ready, baby," Sarah called out from the kitchen, her voice light and musical. "I still can't believe it. I keep waiting for the sheriff to knock on the door. But we're safe, Malik. We're actually safe." Before Malik could answer, a heavy, rhythmic knock echoed through the house. Not from the kitchen door, from the front door. Sarah's humming stopped instantly. The sound of sizzling oil seemed to magnify in the sudden, suffocating silence. Malik closed his laptop. He stood up, his heart hammering against his ribs, and walked to the front window. He pulled the frayed curtain back just a fraction of an inch. Parked on the street, gleaming under the broken streetlight, was a black Mercedes S-Class. Standing on their porch were 2 men. One was Preston Harrington, the lawyer he had humiliated hours ago. He was no longer wearing his courtroom suit. He wore a dark cashmere overcoat. The man next to him was built like a cinder block, wearing a tailored suit that barely hid the bulge of a shoulder holster. "Malik," Sarah whispered, wiping her hands on her apron as she stepped into the living room. "Who is it?" "Go to the kitchen now," Malik said quietly. "Don't come out." Malik called the police. "No, they haven't done anything illegal, yet." Malik unlocked the deadbolt and pulled the door open, keeping the chain engaged. He stared through the 3-inch gap at the men on his porch. "Good evening, Malik," Harrington said, his voice smooth, avoiding the panic he had shown in the courtroom. "May we come in?" "No," Malik said flatly. Harrington smiled. "I understand. I'd be defensive too. But I'm not here to threaten you, son. I'm here to offer you a scholarship. May I slip something through the door?" Malik didn't answer. He just watched. Harrington reached into his coat pocket, pulled out a thick, legal-sized envelope, and slid it through the crack in the door. It fell onto the welcome mat. Inside that envelope, Harrington said, his voice dropping to a low conspiratorial murmur, "is a cashier's check made out to Sarah Jenkins for $250,000, tax-free. It's a settlement offer." Malik looked down at the envelope. $250,000. It was more money than his mother would make in a decade. It would pay for his college. It would fix the leaking roof. It would change their lives. "A settlement for what?" Malik asked, his voice steady. The judge dismissed the case. We don't owe you anything. It's not for the house, Malik. It's for your silence. Harrington said, leaning closer to the door, his eyes cold and dead. You're a smart kid. A genius, frankly. The CEO of Apex Holdings. Richard Clayton is very impressed. We know you're sitting in there right now, digging into the county records. We know you found the other Hopkins files. You stumbled onto a plumbing leak in our corporate structure. You mean a massive coordinated fraud ring, Malik corrected. Semantics. Harrington waved his hand dismissively. The point is, nobody else knows about this. If you go to the press or try to file a class action, you will be locked in litigation for the next 15 years. Apex has a war chest of $50 million solely dedicated to crushing lawsuits. We will drag you through depositions until you graduate college. We will bury you in paperwork. And in the end, we will win because the system is designed for us to win. The large man next to Harrington shifted his weight, his presence a silent, looming threat. Or, Harrington continued softly, you take the envelope. You sign the attached non-disclosure agreement. You wipe your hard drive. Your mother retires tomorrow. You go to Harvard or Yale or wherever a kid with a brain like yours belongs. You win, Malik. You beat us. Take your prize and walk away. Malik looked at the envelope. He thought about the exhaustion in his mother's eyes. He thought about the double shifts. All he had to do was reach down, pick it up, and sign a piece of paper. Then, his eidetic memory flashed an image in his mind. It wasn't a law. It was Mrs. Gable, an elderly woman who used to live 3 blocks over. Apex Holdings had evicted her last winter. She had died in a city shelter 2 months later. 412 families. Malik looked up, his expression hardening into stone. $250,000, Malik said slowly. That's a lot of money. It's a new life, Harrington agreed. Which means my math is right. Malik counted a cold fire igniting in his chest. If you're willing to write a check for $250,000 on a Friday night to a 17-year-old kid, it means your exposure is in the hundreds of millions. It means Richard Clayton is terrified. Harrington's smile vanished. You're making a mistake, kid. Harrington warned, his voice dropping its friendly facade. You got lucky today because you surprised me. You won't surprise us again. The people I work for do not like loose ends. If you don't take this envelope, you're going to learn how heavy the real world is. Get off my porch, Malik said, before I call the police and report 2 men trespassing. Harrington stared at him for a long, venomous moment. Then he reached down, picked up the envelope, and slipped it back into his coat. I tried to do this the easy way, Harrington whispered. Remember that when the roof caves in. The 2 men turned and walked back to the Mercedes. Malik shut the door, threw the deadbolt, and leaned against the wood, his chest heaving. He had just turned down a fortune. He had just declared war on a billion-dollar empire. Malik, Sarah asked, coming out of the kitchen holding a wooden spoon like a weapon. Who was that? Malik looked at his mother, realizing he could no longer fight this battle from the shadows. Mom, we need a lawyer, a real one. Diane Carmichael did not look like a corporate giant slayer. Her office, located above a failing strip mall in downtown Chicago, smelled perpetually of stale coffee and printer toner. Her desk was an archaeological dig site of legal briefs, empty takeout containers, and half-empty bottles of antacids. Diane was 54, possessed a head of chaotic grey curls, and had spent the last 20 years fighting civil rights abuses and corporate malpractice. She was brilliant, cynical, and notoriously difficult to work with. When Malik walked into her office on Monday afternoon, skipping his AP calculus class, Diane didn't even look up from her paperwork. We don't do pro bono traffic tickets, kid. Public defender's office is 3 blocks down, she muttered, highlighting a line of text. I don't have a traffic ticket, Malik said, dropping a thick 3-ring binder onto the center of her desk. The sheer weight of it made her coffee cup rattle. I have a systemic multi-million-dollar real estate fraud case against Apex Holdings and the law firm of Preston Harrington. I've mapped the corporate structure, documented 412 illegal foreclosures, and identified the specific penal codes they violated. I need you to serve as lead counsel for a class action lawsuit. Diane finally looked up, peering over her reading glasses at a teenager standing in front of her. She looked at his faded hoodie, his backpack, and then down at the meticulously tabbed binder. She let out a harsh bark of alarm. Is this a prank? Did the guys over at Legal Aid send you here to mess with me? Open the binder, Ms. Carmichael, Malik said, pulling up a chair and sitting down uninvited. Page 1. My name is Malik Jenkins. Last Friday, I successfully defended my mother in pro se capacity against Preston Harrington by proving their notary, Gerald Hopkins, was operating under a suspended license. The judge dismissed with prejudice. Diane's amusement evaporated. She sat up straight. She knew Preston Harrington. She hated Preston Harrington. The man was a corporate vulture who had beaten her in court twice. She pulled the binder toward her and flipped it open. Her eyes scanned the first page, then the second, then the third. The room went silent, except for the rustle of turning pages. She saw the metadata logs. She saw the cross-referenced property deeds. She saw a legal strategy laid out with a precision that bordered on the terrifying. "Who helped you build this?" Diane asked, her voice hushed, looking at Malik as if he were an alien. "What paralegal did this?" "I did," Malik said. "I have an eidetic memory. I memorized the state property codes. But I'm 17. I don't have standing to file a class action, and I don't have a law degree to argue it. I need a litigator with teeth. I read your brief on State versus Omnicorp. You're aggressive. You don't settle easily. You're the right fit for this." Diane took off her glasses, rubbing her temples. "Kid, do you have any idea what you're holding here? This isn't just civil liability. This is RICO territory. This is federal racketeering. If Apex Holdings knowingly used a fraudulent notary to process hundreds of evictions, this will destroy the company. It will send their CEO to federal prison." "I know," Malik said. "That's the goal. They will crush you. They won't play by the rules. They will find your leverage points and they will snap. You are a high school student. You are not ready for a blood match with $1 billion real estate conglomerate. They already tried to buy me off," Malik said. "Harrington showed up at my house Friday night with a check for $250,000. I told him to go to hell." Diane stared at me, her jaw slightly unhinged. Then a slow, dangerous smile spread across her face. It was the smile of a seasoned fighter who had just been handed a loaded bazooka. "All right, kid," Diane said, slamming the binder shut. "You want to slay a dragon? We're going to need to file an emergency injunction to freeze the remaining properties before they realize we're coming for them. We have to hit them fast and hard." They spent the next 6 hours locked in the office. Malik watched as Diane operated, marveling at her tactical mind. While Malik had the raw data and the memorized statutes, Diane knew how the machine worked. She knew which judges to avoid, which clerks to press, and how to draft a class action complaint that would detonate like a bomb on the court docket. By 7 p.m., they had a 60-page filing ready for the federal courthouse. Malik felt a surge of adrenaline. They were going to do it. They were going to save hundreds of families. His phone vibrated in his pocket. It was his mother. "Hey, Mom," Malik answered, stepping out into the hallway. "I'm sorry I'm late. I'm at the library." "Malik." Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. It was a choked, broken sound that made the blood freeze in his veins. "Mom, what's wrong? Are you okay?" They fired me, Malik. The hospital." Malik gripped the phone, his knuckles turning white. Why you've been there for 10 years? Security called me into the office at the end of my shift." Sarah sobbed, completely falling apart. They searched my locker. They found 3 bottles of oxycodone hidden in my nursing shoes. "Malik, I swear to God I didn't put them there. I don't even have access to that cabinet. But the director of nursing said they have an anonymous tip. They suspended my license." police. The police are investigating me for felony theft. Malik felt the floor drop out from beneath him. They will find your leverage points, and they will snap them. Diane's words echoed in his head. Mum, listen to me, Malik said, his voice trembling despite his best efforts to control it. Did they arrest you? No, not yet. The union rep demanded they let me go home pending the police inquiry. But Malik, if I get charged, we lose everything. I'll go to jail. Who did this? Why is this happening? I know who did it, Mom. Go home. Lock the doors. Do not speak to the police without a lawyer. I'm coming right now. Malik hung up the phone. He walked slowly back into Diane's office. The adrenaline was gone, replaced by a cold, suffocating dread. Diane looked up from the printer. She saw his face and instantly knew something had gone catastrophically wrong. What happened? Apex Holdings. Malik said, his voice hollow. Richard Clayton is on the board of directors for Memorial Hospital, isn't he? Diane quickly typed the name into her database. Her face fell. Yes, he's a platinum donor. He practically owns the executive board. Why? They just planted narcotics in my mother's locker, Malik said, staring blankly at the wall. She's being investigated for felony theft. She's going to lose her nursing license. She might go to prison. The reality of the war he had started crashed down on him. This wasn't a game of legal chess anymore. Apex wasn't just trying to protect their money. They were trying to destroy his family to force him into submission. Harrington had warned him. Remember that when the roof caves in. Diane stood up, walking around the desk and putting a hand on the teenager's shoulder. For the first time, Malik looked like what he was, a scared 17-year-old kid in way over his head. Malik, Diane said softly. This is how they work. This is the intimidation phase. If we file this class action tomorrow, they will fast-track your mother's criminal charges. They will bury her to break you. You need to make a choice right now. We can drop this. You can call Harrington, take the NDA, and they will make your mother's charges disappear by morning. Nobody would blame you. Malik looked at the massive binder on the desk. Inside were the names of 412 families. People like his mother. People who had been crushed, tossed aside and forgotten by a system designed to exploit their lack of power. If he backed down, Apex won. Richard Clayton won. Preston Harrington won. They would keep doing it forever. Malik took a deep, shuddering breath. He wiped a single tear from his eye. When he looked back up at Diane, the fear was gone. It was replaced by an icy, terrifying resolve. Miss Carmichael, Malik said, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. I don't just want to file the class action anymore. What do you want to do? Diane asked. I want to pierce the corporate veil. Malik said, his eidetic mind already pulling up federal statutes, connecting dots, building a weapon of mass legal destruction. I want to hold Richard Clayton personally criminally liable for the fraud. I want to freeze his personal assets. I want to rip his empire down to the studs. Malik grabbed his backpack and slung it over his shoulder. File the injunction tonight. Malik ordered, his eyes burning with a brilliant, destructive light. Let them come for my mother, because by the time they get to court, I'm going to make sure Richard Clayton is wearing handcuffs. The next 48 hours were a blur of caffeine whiteboards and pure, unfiltered desperation. Malik did not sleep, while Diane Carmichael drafted the sprawling 60-page civil RICO complaint. Malik sat in the corner of her office, his laptop wired directly into the router for maximum speed. He was hunting a ghost, piercing the corporate veil. Diane had explained around 2 a.m. on Tuesday, rubbing her bloodshot eyes, is the hardest thing to do in corporate law. The entire system is built to protect the executives. To hold Richard Clayton personally responsible, you have to prove the alter ego doctrine. You have to prove that Apex Holdings isn't a real company, but just a personal weapon Clayton uses to commit fraud, and that he commingles his personal money with corporate funds to do it. Malik had absorbed the parameters instantly. He abandoned the property deeds and pivoted to the SEC's public Edgar database, hunting through years of Apex Holdings' quarterly financial filings. He was looking for anomalies, tiny inconsistencies that human auditors might miss, but an eidetic mind would flag. Meanwhile, the terror at home escalated. 2 detectives had visited the Jenkins house. Sarah, acting on Diane's strict orders, refused to speak to them without her attorney present. The hospital formally terminated her. The local nursing board placed a temporary, devastating suspension on her license. Sarah spent her days weeping on the living room sofa, her life's work destroyed by a single phantom phone call. Every time Malik looked at his phone and saw a text from his mother, a cold, dark fury pushed him deeper into the data. At 4:15 a.m. on Wednesday, Malik found it. "Ms. Carmichael," Malik croaked, his voice raw. Diane jerked awake at her desk, spilling a cold cup of coffee. "What did you find something?" Malik turned his laptop around. The screen was filled with dense spreadsheets. Apex Holdings has a rigid internal compliance division. Harrington's law firm handles the legal filings, but Apex's accounting department still has to approve the vendor payouts. If Apex was paying Gerald Hopkins the suspended notary directly for hundreds of fraudulent stamps, it would trigger an internal audit. The volume was too high. "So how was Hopkins getting paid?" Diane asked, leaning in. "He wasn't being paid by Apex." Malik said, a terrifying smile spreading across his exhausted face. "I tracked the notary registration numbers and cross-referenced them with municipal tax records. Hopkins declared a secondary income stream from a consulting LLC called Brimstone Management. It's a shell company." "Okay, but shell companies are standard. Can you link Brimstone to Clayton?" "Not through Apex," Malik said, his eyes burning with triumph. "I went through the Cook County property tax assessments. The registered mailing address for Brimstone Management is a P.O. box in Delaware, but the property tax for that P.O. box was paid via a wire transfer. I pulled the routing numbers from a publicly available municipal ledger." Malik tapped the screen, highlighting a string of digits. "Ms. Carmichael, that routing number belongs to an offshore trust in the Cayman Islands. And guess who listed that exact same offshore trust as a personal asset during his incredibly messy divorce proceedings 4 years ago?" Diane's breath hitched. She looked at the screen, then at Malik. "Richard Clayton," she whispered. "Clayton bypassed his own company's accounting department." Malik explained, his voice gaining strength. "He used his personal offshore trust to fund Brimstone Management, which in turn paid the suspended notary to rubber stamp the fraudulent evictions. He commingled personal funds to execute a criminal enterprise. We just pierced the corporate veil." Diane didn't say a word. She grabbed the phone on her desk and dialed a number she hadn't called in 5 years. "Who are you calling at 4:30 in the morning?" Malik asked. "A friend," Diane said, her eyes locked on the screen. "An assistant United States attorney who has been trying to put Richard Clayton in federal prison for a decade, but never had the paper trail." The line clicked. "David, it's Diane. Wake up. I'm handing you the biggest financial fraud case of your career on a silver platter, but I need a favor. I need you to raid a hospital." Friday morning, the Federal District Court for the Northern District of Illinois felt like a powder keg. Inside courtroom, 3B Preston Harrington and Apex Holdings CEO Richard Clayton sat at the defense table. Clayton checked his heavy gold Rolex, visibly irritated by the sheer inconvenience of an emergency injunction hearing. At the plaintiff's table, 17-year-old Malik Jenkins sat quietly beside his mother Sarah and their attorney, Diane Carmichael. Judge Eleanor Higgins, a federal judge renowned for her merciless efficiency, took the bench. "We are here regarding an injunction to freeze all real estate assets held by Apex Holdings pending a civil RICO lawsuit. Mr. Harrington, your response." Harrington stood, attempting to project absolute confidence. "Your Honor, this is a baseless extortion attempt built on cherry-picked data compiled by a high school teenager. Furthermore, the plaintiff's mother, Mrs. Jenkins, is currently under police investigation for felony narcotics theft. We motion to dismiss this retaliatory lawsuit immediately." Clayton smirked. The leverage was supposed to break them. Instead, Diane Carmichael stood up, her smile razor sharp. Your Honor, if opposing counsel wishes to discuss the narcotics investigation, we welcome it. In fact, we brought a guest to weigh in. The heavy oak doors at the back of the courtroom swung open. Assistant U.S. Attorney David Ross marched down the aisle, flanked by 2 federal agents from the FBI's white-collar crime division. Clayton's smirk vanished. Harrington froze. The Department of Justice officially files a motion to intervene. Ross announced, his voice echoing off the marble walls. We have just unsealed a federal indictment against Richard Clayton and Preston Harrington for wire fraud, racketeering, and witness tampering. Chaos erupted at the defense table. Clayton stood, his face turning a dangerous shade of purple as he pointed at his lawyer. What did you do? Ms. Carmichael, illuminate the court, Judge Higgins ordered, slamming her gavel to cut through the noise. Gladly, Diane replied. My brilliant co-counsel, Mr. Jenkins, proved Mr. Clayton used his personal offshore trust to fund the suspended notary, definitively piercing the corporate veil. The witness tampering. That was Mr. Harrington's fatal mistake. When my client refused a massive bribe, Harrington fabricated a narcotics tip to destroy Mrs. Jenkins's life. Harrington gripped the table, shaking violently. The hospital received an anonymous email. You can't prove anything. Actually, we can, Diane countered coldly. Mr. Jenkins understands data architecture. He advised the FBI to subpoena the hospital's firewall. He traced the digital footprint of that anonymous email. It bounced through 3 proxy servers, but the originating MAC address belongs to the desktop computer sitting in the private office, Mr. Harrington. The silence in the courtroom was absolute. The trap had snapped shut. The hospital board has fully exonerated Sarah Jenkins, Diane concluded softly. Sarah collapsed against Malik, weeping tears of pure, unadulterated relief. He held her tight, his own shoulders finally dropping. Passports to the bailiff. Both of you are remanded into federal custody, Judge Higgins declared, signaling the agents. As the FBI slapped handcuffs on the billionaire and his ruthless lawyer Clayton locked eyes with Malik. The teenager didn't gloat. He didn't smile. He just stared back with icy, calculating resolve. Within months, Apex Holdings filed for bankruptcy. 412 families regained their stolen homes. Scholarship offers poured in from Harvard and Yale. But Malik wasn't ready to leave Chicago just yet. Every afternoon he walked into Diane Carmichael's office, sat at his desk, and began hunting for the next corporate giant. What began as a desperate mother's darkest hour became the ultimate David and Goliath story, proving that the most dangerous weapon in any courtroom isn't money. It's a brilliant, unrelenting mind. Malik didn't just save his home. He exposed a corrupt empire and saved hundreds of families from financial ruin. If this incredible story of justice intimate